What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Succession Report, the show where we talk about last week's episode of Succession, HBO's hit show that everybody knows and loves, and it's the biggest craze right now in the world.
Yeah, it's back for season 2. It's killing it so far. 2 phenomenal episodes. We're really moving along with the drama of the Roy family.
Yeah, exactly. Just to, catch up, last season we ended with a really surprising bang where we thought we had this deal going against Papa Roy, and everything was called off because of this cover up essentially. So now we see the characters and they're essentially all the dynamics have changed, and yeah, I really like where it's going. What do you think of it so far, Ben?
Yeah, we kind of had the rise and fall of Kendall Roy, and now Kendall is kind of like a shell of his former self, and he's just basically like a henchman lackey for his daddy. So yeah,
Exactly.
very exciting.
Yeah,
A lot of potential for the rest of the season.
yeah. I remember saying to you last year that I really thought he was snubbed of a an Emmy. I think his performance on season one was just incredible, and so much dynamic range in his performance. This season, I do feel like he's becoming a little bit one note. Maybe it's something to have to do with the writing. I mean, we do have some moments of the power dynamic where when he's with his dad, he's obviously very he feels very, like you said, like an empty shell, and he's guilty,
It's
and
very
he's
emasculated.
yeah. But then you see him with what's his name, the cousin Tommy,
Greg.
or yeah, Greg, cousin Greg, and he's definitely the boss. Yeah, so it's interesting how the show plays with these power dynamics with, I guess, within all of the characters really.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And I think I mentioned before that my favorite character right now is Shiv. Big fan of Shiv, and I'm very excited to see where her story goes from here, as she's potentially on a 3-year track to take the reins of Waystar Royko away from her daddy, and she's having like this weird alpha beta relationship with her husband Tom, who's kind of a weird character where he's very weak in his personal relationships with the Roy family, but then he overcompensates with other people who are outside of the family by putting on this fake bravado and trying to be this kind of manufactured asshole kind of guy, especially around people like Greg.
Yeah, exactly. He's such a huge tool, but I guess in episode two, season two, episode two, we do get a sense of it feels like his dick's been chopped off, and he's kind of just scrambling around to after he hears the news that Shiv tells him I may be taking over, or she kind of frames it as if it's yeah, I was asked, I probably won't take it. But even just that takes his all of his energy away, and you can tell he's yeah, like a chicken with his head cut off, which to me I found a lot of joy in that because he's such a tool. Even though his dialogue is so funny and well written, I do think he's one of the most hateable. I mean, most of the characters are very hateable, even though you love to hate them.
No, I think that's very unique about the show is that all the characters are kind of unlikable. And I think that another thing is every single conversation between people on the show is there's nothing ever straight up that's happening. It's always, people having these conversations, trying to manipulate and play each other. And so you never really understand anyone's true motivations or feelings, because everyone is putting up this guard with everybody else and creating this sense of I'm trying to get you to see this specific part of me, or try to manipulate you into acting a certain way. So it's very kind of unique in that way, where even people married couples who you think would have endless trust with each other are having these kind of guarded conversations, and it's very interesting.
Yeah, really, I think the best TV show, best show on TV currently. All right, now that we've discussed that, let's get into the Overwatch League report. As people know, we're kind of winding down. Stage 4, week 4. We have one more week, and then we're getting into basically the grind of the finals, and or at least the playoffs. And yeah, I think at this point we're kind of we're seeing where everyone stands. As we were kind of discussing before we were rolling, we see the top 4 or 5 teams as they are currently. But there was one surprising match this week, which was Atlanta Reign versus London, and I think this kind of changed some placements for us. Atlanta, of course, swept London 4-0, and yeah, I mean, it's looking like they're like a top 6 team right now.
Yeah, so the Atlanta Reign are having kind of a comeback stage here. They've had a rough time mostly this season, coming back from losing to Fran going into stage 2, picking up Baby Bay, having kind of an iffy time performing in the GOATS meta, and just kind of like floundering, having some ups and downs where they have the times where they are able to top New York Excelsior for the first time in the regular season. And now we see them potentially looking like they might go 7-0 this stage, with only matches against Dallas and Boston next week at the Kit Kat homestand. And potentially, if they win both of those matches, catapulting themselves into a top 5 finish for the season, which is pretty insane given their trajectory.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you consider where they were, a couple weeks ago or, last stage. It's been an interesting ride for sure for them. I think, Baby Bay really has been such a strong player after, once they replaced Defren. But Erster has been like such an incredible Hanzo. As the 2-2-2 lock has been in effect, we're really seeing a lot of DPS players shine, and Erster's like it's really incredible to watch.
Yeah, potentially, in my opinion, the best Hanzo in the league. Even statistic-wise, you can look at a lot of the statistics. He's tops in them for that hero, and on top of that, able to play not only just the sniper heroes, but he can play Mei when they have the Mei Reaper set up with Baby Bay in the Reaper slot. So yeah, definitely a huge boon to the success of the team is not only Urser's success on Hanzo as a hero, but also his versatility. And then on top of that, you have Dogman really coming into his own and performing a lot better, and playing a lot more Moira, which he seems more comfortable with than the other flex support heroes. And then also Masa really performing well in these kind of new, more flexible positions, playing heroes like Batiste. I think the Masa is one of the more underrated main supports in the league. So I think that they just have a really strong. They have a really strong team. Obviously, Pokepo is great, and then having both FRD/Fried and Dako in that flex tank position, where they have Fried playing mostly when they need the Roadhog and the Orisa Hog setup. It's been working out really well. And then also being able to flex in Enlair to play Mei when they want to run Erster on the sniper, just having that flexibility with their lineup to be able to make those kind of adjustments on a map-to-map basis. They're definitely looking like a potential underdog or dark horse going into these playoffs, especially if they do make the top 6 and don't have to fight their way through the play-ins.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think next week they're going to have no trouble beating Boston and Dallas. And, even just looking at their both of their matches this week, Boston lost to Florida Mayhem in a sweep. After batch 2, I was like, oh, can they pull off a reverse sweep? But nope, I think those days of Boston are kind of gone. And then they lost again to LA Valiant, who's a strong team as well. So that wasn't too much of a shock. But yeah, it's really unfortunate. We don't have to go into too much depth. I know this is a sore topic for you, Ben, but at least from my perspective, I just don't. I mean, I've heard that there's trouble with Aim God and not being such a strong personality across the team. You know, maybe being a little bit toxic or something. You know, I guess there's no way for us to know for sure, but in my opinion, I really think they got to put him back. It's like sort of the Kareev situation with LA Valiant in the earlier in the earlier stages. You know, you gotta keep in your best players, even if I think the team camaraderie isn't as strong. I don't know. What's your take on that?
I mean, I think that Persia has been performing decently well, at least compared to how he has been performing in the past. Once he like the first few matches he played in after he was picked up, but like obviously, yeah, M God's crazy good. It seems like at this point they're kind of just setting up a situation where they want to try and trade off M God in the off season, which is pretty sad. He's one of two players that's still around from the 2018 roster, even though he was kind of picked up halfway through the season, along with Calix, who was the only remaining original roster player for the team. So it would be a little sad to see him go, and he is like an incredibly strong player. I think a lot of the issue, I mean, we talk about Imgod being benched, but I mean, RCK has also been benched right now. He is preparing, it seems, for playing a DPS role in the Overwatch World Cup, or at least that's what seems the line from the team is as to why he's been benched. Is he's like focusing on getting better in that role to play in the World Cup. And then we've seen Stellar come in as the second DPS player, replacing Blase, who has been taking over the off-tank role, playing Hog and Diva. And, obviously, like, Blase is a phenomenal player. He's one of the, he's like a top 5 or 10 Doomfist, I would say. But, this is a new role for him, and he's been performing relatively well compared to what you could expect for somebody who's kind of just, like, in a new situation. But he's still, obviously, not performing up to snuff of other off tanks in the league.
Yeah. It's just such a shame to see them lose to like a team like Florida, which I mean they have been looking a lot stronger now that the roll lock is in effect. They do have a lot of great players, and clearly Goats just was not their jive. But what about Dallas? I mean, they lost. So they lost their first game this week to Hangzhou Spark, 3-1, and then they lost in like basically the last match of the weekend to Guangzhou Charge. Obviously, both of these teams are quite strong, and so it's not like a huge surprise. But yeah, it's just they're not doing great. Like I think you said before we started recording, the Boston and Dallas are probably the last two teams totally in the league.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, in this meta at the very least, in Stage 4. Yeah, I mean, Dallas, they just haven't, like, solidified a real starting 6 roster. They have, like, OGE and Trill trading off on main tank. They have this, like, rotating DPS roster of, like, AKM and Taimu coming in and out, Zachary. And now we even saw like Mickey coming in and out. We've seen Unko and Harry Hook trading off. Like basically, like Closer is the only like consistent player they're starting, and like we can expect to see. And so like I guess and Zachary. So Zachary's been pretty consistent in one of the DPS slot, and the other one has been rotating. But yeah, it's just. It just seems like they don't really have like a solid plan at this point. They're just like saying, okay, we're out. We're just gonna like kind of play some of our other players, get them warmed up and see what we kind of want to build for next season.
That makes the most sense to me. That's like the only logical thing, other than like, I mean, you have to assume that the coaching staff isn't just like desperately changing things up. You got to assume that they're kind of they're experimenting for future,
right?
Like putting Mickey back in. I'm so happy to see Mickey back in, but it also like doesn't make a ton of sense just because he hasn't been like playing all season. But it's the end of the season, and clearly they're not going to the playoffs. So yeah, it makes sense. Do kind of what you want. But one team that I was really hoping to see in the top six was Shanghai Dragons, but unfortunately they lost both of their matches this week. They lost to Seoul Dynasty 3-1 on the first day, and then let's see,
They
on
lost to
Saturday,
Paris.
yeah, they lost to Paris, which to me I was really surprised at.
Yeah.
Is it just because like 2-2-2 they can't pull off these like sick triple DPS, comps? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, it seems like they are just unconfident in their in like building around a 2-2-2 where they have like this off tank role. Like they've tried out like Youngjin playing Hog. They've tried out like Envy playing Diva and playing Hog a little bit. It just seems like they tried so hard in stage 3 to like perfect this multi DPS, like 3-4 DPS composition setup, mostly 3 DPS with Gamsu on ball, where they just haven't transitioned well into this 2-2-2 meta, especially like compared to what people expected of them, because they were already kind of pre-preparing for this 2-2-2 switch by having like a DPS heavy comp in stage 3. I mean, they have so much talent on their team that it's very surprising that they're struggling. It just kind of seems like a team synergy and team orientation issue that I was hoping that they would fix, and they'd get back on their feet by the end of the stage, heading into the playoffs and heading into the play-in specifically, where it's single elimination. There's no room for errors. But it doesn't seem like that's the case. And so it looks like the chances of us seeing Shanghai make a run for it are kind of slipping through our fingers at this point.
Yeah, so sad to see it, but yeah, that's how it goes, I guess. So let's talk about Kit Kat weekend. What we're looking at, like you said, Dallas versus Atlanta, Boston versus Atlanta. I think it's safe to say they'll pull those off. Boston versus New York. I'm pretty confident in New York, even though they've kind of been looking not so strong lately. But I'm pretty sure they're gonna beat Boston.
Mm-hmm.
But we are gonna see San Francisco versus Vancouver. This is really exciting. These could be the two teams in the grand finals.
Yep.
What do you think? This I think this is gonna be a ball.
No, for sure. And these are definitely the two teams, or two of the primary teams that have transitioned. Of the top teams from GOATS, these are the teams that have transitioned, in my opinion, the best into the 2-2-2 meta. And so it'll be interesting to see this kind of matchup that could predate a matchup in the playoffs, potentially even the grand finals, like you mentioned. So yeah, that's exciting. And then also, like, there are 8 matches and 4 of them do matter as far as like relevant standings go, where both of Atlanta's matches matter, as you mentioned, because if they win both of them, they will make top 6 and bump London out. And then also both of Los Angeles Valiant's matches will matter if they beat either the Gladiators or the Shock, which are 2 difficult teams to match up against. But if they do pull off a win against either one of those, they can pass Chengdu and steal that number 12 slot away, and be able to make the play-ins and knock Chengdu out of the playoffs.
Yeah, that would be huge for them. So as you mentioned, LA Gladiators versus Los Angeles Valiant, as I guess it's like been advertised as the battle for LA.
Of course, yeah.
I do think it's going to be a very close game. If you had to choose, who do you think who would come out and they win?
I mean, I think Gladiators still have been performing relatively well. They
LA Big Geese, as they're I guess being named. Even like on YouTube, I think the official Overwatch League YouTube channel named their matches the LA Big Geese.
Yeah, for that brief moment in time where they did that fun kind of meme branding change, that was pretty funny. But I mean, Big Goose is crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, every single member of their team is just at least above average in terms of their position. So
totally. Yeah. And then we'll see on Sunday. We'll see Shanghai versus Hangzhou. I feel like Hangzhou's going to come out on top in this, even though I'm probably going to be rooting for Shanghai. And then we're going to see NYXL versus Vancouver, which this could go either way, maybe. I don't know. Do you think New York has it in them, or are they like just choking at the end of the season here?
I mean, it certainly seems like they've been choking, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we'll see. This again could be another potential preview for a playoff matchup, as both of those teams are in the 1 and 2 slot right now, heading into the playoffs. So it's definitely a potential like semifinal matchup in the winners bracket, or like some kind of like losers bracket matchup down the line. Maybe like the final matchup before the final match with the winner and loser bracket top teams going against each other. So like there's a lot of potential here for both of those, the San Francisco versus Vancouver and the New York versus Vancouver matches being kind of playoff previews
Yeah,
of how these teams are going to perform.
totally. And then the last match of the weekend will be San Francisco versus LA Valiant. I feel like, if I had to bet money, I would probably put it on Shock. But at the same time, LA Valiant's been looking really strong, and it feels like the kind of thing where, like, right at the last moment when you think San Francisco is just going to, like, sweep everyone away, they somehow lose like they did to, like, Shanghai and they did to, like, Vancouver in the past. Um, I think it's not entirely impossible for LA Valiant to come out ahead in that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the breaking point is, but I think that, even if you say that Valiant has like a 30 or 35% chance of winning either of these matches individually, like that's still probably about, I don't have the math numbers off the top of my head, but it's still probably about like a 50-50 or maybe even better chance of them winning at least one of them. So like there's still a chance for Valiant to get one of these upsets and make their way into the playoffs after starting the season 0-7.
Yeah,
let's be very clear.
Exactly. Yeah,
Valiant came in.
Yeah, exactly. It would be such a great story, and that would be. I think that'd be really awesome for them, and interesting for everyone. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else we should cover? I think that's all that I had jotted down.
No, I mean it was like the matches this week. There was a lot of fun matches to watch, but in terms of where we are right now, in terms of like looking at the playoff picture, many of the matches just kind of didn't really matter. There's a lot of teams playing who are already knocked out, and it was just kind of playing for pride at this point. So yeah, it was a fun week just in terms of the matches and the entertainment value of like watching these players play in this new meta at a high level. But it was relatively low stakes, except for a couple of matches. So yeah, I'm excited because, like I said, 4 of the 8 matches next week do matter in terms of like important playoff standings, and then there are these 2 other matches with San Francisco versus Vancouver and New York versus Vancouver, which should be fun playoff preview potential. So at least 6 out of the 8 matches next week are important or exciting. So that's pretty cool. It should be a lot of fun. I'm sure there'll be some other fun stuff going on because this is like the Kit Kat sponsored,
Kit Kat.
Yeah, go Kit Kat. They got candy. They got some good stuff.
Yeah, I think these homestand games are always fun.
Yeah.
Even though I know it's like everything takes place in like LA, but
like down the street.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure like all of the casters and like players are okay with it because they don't have to go anywhere. But yeah, it should be a blast, and we will definitely be here next week to cover it. But yeah, as far as this week, thank you guys for watching, and make sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell button for all of our videos. We have a lot of great stuff coming out in the future, a lot of plans, and make sure to also subscribe to our podcast channel. This is a new venture that we're exploring, which is to kind of make a lot of podcasts, and yeah, it should be really fun. We're gonna do like an improv one. We might explore like Dungeons and Dragons a lot of comedy, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Constant content.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can follow me on Twitter at Ben Sharon. You can watch Succession on HBO. It's a great show. So
yeah. Can't recommend Succession enough. Even though I'm sure everyone is already watching it, especially if they're watching this show. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week. Take care.